If you've got your Bibles, turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Ecclesiastes chapter 4. We'll read the chapter together. So I returned and considered all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter. And on the side of their oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter. Wherefore I praise the dead which are already dead more than the living which are yet alive. Yea, better is he than both they which hath not yet been, who hath not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. Again I considered all travail and every right work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbour. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. The fool foldeth his hands together and eateth his own flesh. Better is a handful with quietness than both the hands full with travail and vexation of spirit. Then I returned, and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labour. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither saith he, for whom do I labour, and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labour. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat, but how can one be warm alone? If one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and the threefold cord is not quickly broken. Better is a poor and wise child than an old and foolish king, who will no more be admonished. For out of prison he cometh to reign, whereas also he that is born in his kingdom becometh poor. I considered all the living which walk under the sun, with the second child that shall stand up in his stead. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in him. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. We're picking up from verse 7. Then I returned and I saw vanity under the sun. And we've talked about the different, 10 vanities that Solomon talks about in the book of Ecclesiastes. There is one alone. Word studies are good. To just pick a word and run them on a concordance. Then you get the different, where they fit in the context and that. And it's very interesting. If you take the word alone, and we're only going to look up, I think, 5 or 6 of these, there's 106 verses where the word alone occurs. And I just want to run you to a few of them. The word alone. Turn to Genesis 32. Before we get into our study on Ecclesiastes, let's just look at a little word study on the word alone. Genesis 32, because at times we feel alone. Genesis 32 verse 24. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. Now, this is very interesting. Jacob was left alone. And while he was alone, there wrestled a man with him. So he's not alone. Somebody's wrestling with him. Until the breaking of the day. Verse 25, and when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, as he wrestled with him. You wrestle with God, and you'll know about it. Trust me, I've had 2 hip replacements. You wrestle with God, you fight against God, and you'll know about it. And here, Jacob is wrestling with God. Turn to the book of Hosea. Hosea, chapter 12. Chapter 12, verse 4 and 5. Yea, he hath power over the angel, and prevailed. He wept and made supplication unto him. He found him in Bethel, and there he spake with us. Even the Lord of hosts, the Lord is his memorial. Ruckman's got a great note on Genesis 32:24, which says this. Now something can happen, and he quotes Hosea 12 verse 4-5, is going to take place, and this time it is just Jacob and God alone. Sometimes it needs to be you and God alone. This causes us to quote a familiar proverb: nothing is settled right until it is settled with God. What is about to happen is Jacob thinks he is going to get a prayer answered that God already answered, but God kept it from him to make him sweat it out in order to deal with him and something that happened many years ago. God puts us through different situations in our life for our good, not for our harm, to teach us a lesson, to at times maybe chastise us, but to teach us a lesson. And it's always for the good. We always benefit from him and from the situation. So sometimes we have to be alone, sometimes we have to go through sickness and operations and illness and all these things and problems and tragedies in life. And the Lord speaks to us. He breaks us. Sometimes we ought to get alone. We ought to be alone a little bit more with the Lord, just us and God, just like Jacob did. Turn to Exodus chapter 18, verse 17 and 18. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, the thing that thou doest is not good. Thou wilt surely wear away both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. There's going to be times in your life where you will feel alone, and times in your life where you're trying to do things alone, and it's going to wear you out because you haven't people around you that you can lean on and can help you. Trying to go it alone at times is very difficult. Oh, you should be alone with God, I understand that. But don't cut yourself off too alone, because the burden is sometimes too heavy, just like it was here with Moses, too heavy to carry. Turn to 1 Samuel 21. 1 Samuel. Verse 1. Then came David to Nob, to Ahimelech the priest, and Ahimelech was afraid at the meeting of David, and said unto him, why art thou alone, and no man with thee? We feel like that at times. But sometimes you've got to take a stand alone. That's a stand against your work colleagues, even your family at times. You've got to take a stand alone. And the more you compromise, the worse it becomes. Why art thou alone and no man with thee? There are times when you will have to stand alone. Turn to 2 Samuel. I'm just picking a few out. 2 Samuel 18, verse 24. And David sat between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate unto the wall, and lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, a man running alone. A man running alone. That's going to be you at times in your life. That's where you will feel that you are running alone. Yesterday when we were looking at that guy, he was tracting. He was there alone, tracting. A lot of Christians go out alone. It's much easier if you go out in twos, of course, or with a team. But if you go out alone, it's more difficult. But sometimes you'll feel like you are alone in life. They say you're alone in the crowd, don't they? There's that terminology, he's alone in the crowd. That can also be true. You're in a crowd of people, but you know you're not of them. You're alone. And sometimes we have to run alone. It's not nice. Sometimes it's mandatory, shall we say. You've got to go, the Lord puts you through it. But other times you put yourself in it. John 6, verse 15. When Jesus therefore perceived that they would come and take him by force to make him a king, he departed again into a mountain himself alone. Sometimes get away from your husbands, your wives, your kids. Get alone with God and pray and talk to him. Go for a walk and just pour out your heart and your soul and your life before him. Tell him everything. Don't hold back. Jesus went up into a mountain to pray alone, and he was just talking to his Father. John 16. John 16. Verse 32. Behold, the hour cometh, yea, is now come, that ye shall be scattered, every man to his own, and shall leave me alone. And yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. Jesus suffered and died alone. Even his own Father had to turn his back upon him. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? God turned his back upon the Son of God, because he was made sin for us. We'll never understand that. That's so deep, that's so immense. And we just read the words, and sometimes they don't really trigger or register with us. But for Jesus to suffer and die there alone was horrific, all because of our sin. We have to face things alone in life at times. It's not nice. You know, we all need to lean on somebody. And it's good when you can take comfort from others, where you can lean upon. It's difficult to walk this path alone. Occasionally you'll meet somebody in life, and we use the term, don't we? Oh, he's solid. He's solid, or she's solid. Politically correct. Not old tosh. He's solid. And you lean, and you know you can lean and you can trust and put your faith there. And I think was it Bob Jones Sr.? He said, I quoted this before, but he said that it's never, it's always right to go down the right road, no matter if the person is on the right road and you travel on the right, you stay with him. And you go as far as you can with him. But if he's on the wrong road, you get off that road and get back on that right road. And lastly, before we carry on, Romans 11, turn there. Romans 11, verse 3. Lord, they have killed the prophets, thy prophets, and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. Got a cross-reference there, 1 Samuel 30, verse 6, if you haven't got that. You may want to put that in, 1 Samuel 30, verse 6. Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. That's how we feel at times, you feel nobody else is getting this. Lord, I'm trying, but I'm alone. I need you so much, Lord, because nobody seems to be on the same page. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone, Lord, but that's how we feel at times. We feel so alone. But look at verse 4. But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. You're not alone. You may feel it at times. All around the country, there's Christians like us, pockets of Bible-believing Christians trying to find a place to worship and can't, trying to take a stand, trying to give out tracts, trying to live for the Lord, trying to take a stand against even their own families that are so secular, worldly, atheistic. And it's tough. It's hard. You feel like there's confrontation and friction on every side. But there's times to take a stand alone and get with God and let him lead you through all of this. Back to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 4. Verse 7 and 8. Then I returned and saw vanity under the sun. I wonder, according to you, what is vanity and vexation of spirit? Not according to Solomon. What do you think is futile and a waste of time? We could point things out in each other's lives, couldn't we? I think what you're doing is a waste of time. I think what you're doing is waste. We could say that, but what does God say about the situation? There is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labour. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Saith he, for whom do I labour and bereave my soul of good? This is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail. There's nothing worse than a rich, lonely, single man who can't share anything with anyone. So you share it with friends, family, wives, husbands. It's good to share, except food. Amen. That's funny. It's good to share. If you've got something good, it's nice to share it with somebody else. Turn to Psalm 39. I used to be a right skinflint. I didn't want to share when I was younger. But when you become a Christian, the Lord changes your heart. Now I share, or try and share everything I can. And half my stuff is missing. And you thieves. What was it Spurgeon said? Christians make good bookkeepers. That's so true. Yeah, half my books are missing. Psalm 39, verse 6. Surely every man walketh in a vain show. Surely they are disquieted in vain. He heapeth up riches and knoweth not who shall gather them. Now, I don't know whether you're rich or poor, and whether you've got lots or not enough, whatever it is. But I know people that haven't got much money that are very, very generous, and I know other people that have got a lot of money and aren't very generous. It's a very strange thing. Money does change people. And I've seen people, even worked with people, bosses and that, who have had not too much, and then suddenly their business becomes successful and they get a lot of wealth, and they change in character. Suddenly they become, arrogant, full of pride, thinking they're powerful because they've got money now. And it's horrible to watch. I don't like it. I love spending money. I don't like money itself, but I love spending it. But you've got to go get it first. Proverbs 27 verse 20. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. That's a great verse. The eyes of man are never satisfied. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. The eyes of man are never satisfied. 1 John 2 verse 16. Isn't it true? You can have so much and you still want so much more. It's a great, in fact we may even turn there in a second. 1 John 2 verse 16. In fact we'll read from verse 15 because that is such a great verse as well. Love not the world. If you could get that, folks. Neither the things that are in the world. If you could get that, folks. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, and the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but is of the world. Lust and pride go together. Lust and pride. People keep running back to the world. Christians are no better than anybody else. Keep running back to the world for answers, whereas everything is in the Lord. In Philippians 4, it says, verse 11 to 12, not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content. I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed both to be full and to be hungry, both to abound and to suffer need. Whatever state you're in, except in your spiritual state, of course, you ought to be content. If you do get more in your life with money, do something with the money. I keep saying this. The more you get, the more you share. You put it into getting the gospel out, put it into Christian ministry, help people that haven't got enough. Bless somebody with a gift and don't look for, put it in an envelope and post it through a door anonymously, or just help people out. There's people in your own places where you worship and fellowship together that haven't got as much as you. You ought to help them out. You don't need to seek glory for it. Bless other people if you can. All through our lives you'll find that you just keep giving and giving, and the Lord will keep blessing you and blessing you. It's those, remember some Christians saying, those that have sticky hands and the money sticks to them, that God refuses to give any more to. That's so true oftentimes. But if you somebody like D.L. Moody or C.T. Studd, these people that God blessed with immense wealth. Keith Green was another one. God blessed them so much with finance, and they didn't keep it. They just kept giving it away and using it and using it and using it. Be content with what you have. Back to verse 8. There is one alone. There is not a second. Yea, there's not a second. You're not together. One. He hath neither child nor brother. He is there no end of all his labour. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither saith he, for whom do I labour and bereave my soul for good? This also vanity. Yea, it is a sore travail. There is one alone. There are advantages of being single. There's advantages of being married, but there's advantages of being single. Let's turn to a few things here. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. 1 Corinthians chapter 7. Verse 32 to 35. But I would have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried careth for the things that belong to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. Listen, I can absolutely vouch for this. When you get married, Christian will tell you this, Callum will tell you, they're a nightmare. I joke, look at them all, miserable women. There is a difference also between a wife and a virgin. The unmarried woman careth for the things of the Lord. Unmarried, things of the Lord. That she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she that is married careth for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. Get that one, babe, will you? Mm-hmm. Verse 35. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, for that which is comely, and that ye may attend unto the Lord without distraction. Yeah, when you get married, you're distracted. Suddenly, it's trips to IKEA. Is that correct? Yeah? You don't read about IKEA in the Bible, do you? Yeah? I mean, this is anti-scriptural, isn't it? Turn to 1 Timothy 5. I only joke. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 5. Now she that is a widow indeed and desolate trusteth in God and continueth in supplications and prayers night and day. Suddenly she's become, a widow, and she's just put her faith and trust in the Lord. She's just walking with him. She's not distracted. The context of 1 Corinthians 7 is talking about saved men and women that are doing just what the Lord tells them to do. They're in the will of God, doing what God wants them to do. It's the ideal situation. No wife, no children, no distractions. Oh, remember those days? Weren't they wonderful? If you're married and have a family, you have to take care of them. It's a problem, Christian, isn't it? Nagging women, nagging kids. Can I have? No! Yeah, it's like it. So there's a case for staying single, yeah? But we've all gone down that one, most of us down that path. And now we've been caught, Sorry? No, not all. Yeah. But there is also the case for getting married. See? Now we attack the others. They sit there, but now we're going to attack them. Turn to Ecclesiastes 4 again, verse 9. 2 are better than 1. Did you get that? Because they have a good reward for their labour. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if 2 lie together, then they have heat, but how can one be warm alone? Hot water bottles do not count, girls. And if 1 prevail against him, 2 shall withstand him, and a 3-fold cord is not quickly broken. That's lovely, that is. Yet you've got to be careful who you choose. Yep. Mr. Right may not be Mr. Right. You've got to be careful for who you choose. You don't throw yourself at people. You take your time. I understand Donna threw herself at me, but that was some catch. I joke. Come on, Liz, you've got to smile. Proverbs 21, verse 9. It is better to dwell in the corner of the housetop than with a brawling woman in a wide house. They want big houses, and all they do is shout and bawl about. That's what they do. Yeah. Anybody know anybody like that? Amen. 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 Verse 19. It is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. Amen. 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 Yes. Yes. But The Lord, in Genesis 2, turn there, Genesis 2, verse 18. And the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. Oh, that's some funny stuff you could bring up there, isn't there? But we won't. We'll try and keep it.
Sounds like a curse.
Yeah. Oh dear. So there's right and wrong, and there's justification for staying single, and there's justification for getting married as the Lord leads. Not everybody is going to get married, not everybody is going to stay single. You know, you make choices, but whatever happens, you ought to be praying that it's the will of God in your own life. And you know, if you're seeking somebody, then just make sure that you are totally open with the Lord, because some people have got married and it's turned out to be the worst thing they ever did. And some people have stayed single and they wish they'd have got married. You've just got to make sure that you're talking to the Lord about it and praying that His will be done in your own life. Back to verse 9. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labour. 2 are better than 1. Genesis 2:24. Somebody read that to us, please. Anybody there? If not, I'll turn there again. Genesis 2:24.
Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh.
They shall be one flesh. We've had a lot of people recently contact us, you know, when are you married according to Scripture? Listen, it's clear as crystal in many areas, marriage. And we're not going to go through that today. Read the articles that we've done, read the studies we've done. But the two becoming one flesh, and you've got the laws of the land and the government, and, you know, you're living in England now. You've got to abide by the rules of England. You don't just come here and throw it all around. You've got to go through systems and things. And it's not against Scripture. 2 are better than 1, we read. Go to Matthew 19. Matthew 19. Verse 5 and 6. And said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. Therefore God hath joined together, let not man put asunder. You've got to work at marriage, you've got to work. If you're going to get married, you've got to work at it. It doesn't come easy. We all have our tough times. We've gone through tough times in our marriage, but the more I beat her, the more she submitted, and now we've got a total brilliant relationship. She is totally subservient to me, and Liz, it looks good, kill. I think I'm going to have some people writing to me on this sermon, this CD. I joke. It's a two-way thing, yep. You've got to help each other, help meet. You've got to help each other. Matthew 11, turn there, Matthew 11. Cut the atmosphere like a knife today, couldn't you? Oh, I love the Scriptures. Non-divisive. Matthew 11, verse 2. Before or after. Now, when John had heard in the prison the works of Christ, he sent 2 of his disciples. They went out in 2s. He sends in 2s. When you've got a friend, you're walking, together. That's what we need. 2 are better than 1. Not just in, we're talking about marriage here, but in friendships as well. We've said before, a team. You need a team. And the more you work with other people, it's wonderful. Rather than trying to do things alone, you accomplish so much more when there's more than one. And if you can get a friend, you've got a good thing there. Genesis 41 verse 32. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. Interesting. It is because the thing is established by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass. Notice that the thing was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It was established. So there's strength in 2s. Go back to Matthew 18. Matthew 18, verse 16. But if he will not hear thee, then take with thee 1 or 2 more. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, every word may be established. There's that word established again, associated with 2. Verse 19. Again I say unto you that if two of you shall agree on earth as touching anything that they shall ask, it shall be done for them of my Father which is in heaven. And then 2 Corinthians 13. 2 Corinthians. Got to push a little bit quick. 2 Corinthians 13. Are you keeping up, Melissa? You're doing well. 2 Corinthians 13, verse 1. This is the third time I am coming to you. In the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall every word be established. There it is again. 2 are better than 1. We're reading about. We need somebody with us. Help. Don't try and do things on your own. Try and be the hero. I did this on my own. Seek the glory. Look after each other, help each other, love each other, get a good friend, walk beside them, pray and worship the Lord together. If you're getting married, or you're just staying single but you have friends, stay with each other, look after each other. Matthew 21, verse 1. When they drew nigh unto Jerusalem, and they were come to Bethphage, unto the Mount of Olives, then sent Jesus 2 disciples. 2 disciples. Mark 14, verse 13. I get a lot of people contacting me. They're on their own. They'd love somebody to tract with them, or they'd love somebody to talk and have fellowship with. They're on their own. Listen, sometimes you're going to have to travel distances to meet somebody of like-mindedness. Mark 14, 13. Build up friendships. Be open. Give and take. Don't just take, and don't just take a stand where they've got to be my friends on my terms. That's not friendship. Verse 13. And he sendeth forth 2 of his disciples, and saith unto them, Go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. 2 of his disciples. Luke 24, verse 13. And behold, 2 of them went that same day to a village called Emmaus, which was from Jerusalem about 60 furlongs. You get twice as much done oftentimes with 2 people who are committed to the job, to the cause, to the work. I can't do what I do without a team, but you've got to have the right one. You've got to have the right people around you. I don't want just yes people. I want people that can benefit the team, the work. Proverbs 21. And you have to chop and change at times, I understand that as well. Proverbs 21, not everybody fits the bill. Proverbs 21 verse 9. It is better to dwell in the corner of... Oh, we've read this and we house up them with a brawling woman, yeah. Proverbs 19. Proverbs 19. Should we do that one? Verse 13. A foolish son is the calamity of his father, and the contentions of a wife are a continual dropping, yeah. Again, you've got to get the right person. So you've got Proverbs 19, you want to write these down, I'm not going through all these. Verse 13, Proverbs 25 verse 24, and Proverbs 27 verse 15. You've got to get the right person. In a relationship, both parties have to make sacrifices for each other. We all have to make sacrifice. If you're going to have a team, you're going to have a friendship. You know, if you're going to have a friendship and you're going to build... I don't know what kind of friendships you want. I'm not very good with superficial, shallow relationships. I never have been. I'd rather have one person that you've got a deep friendship with and walk with them as far as you can possibly go until, you go your separate ways, whatever. Then maybe somebody else comes onto the scene. Rather than having 10 different people that are just shallow. I'm not into that kind of stuff. People want to meet up for... It's like family gatherings and all that kind of stuff. I'm not really into that stuff. I'm not saying you don't do it. But I just see this shallowness and people are not interested. And I'm not really a family man like that. I'd much rather sit and talk with somebody about depth. That's me personally. 2 are better than 1. In a relationship, both parties have to make sacrifices for each other. And you receive rewards for it. The more you put in, the more you put in, the more you get out. Of course, it's cliche, but it's so true. We've done 1 Corinthians 7, 32, 34, yeah. Okay, so, go back to Ecclesiastes. Verse 7, then I returned and saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone. There's benefits of being alone, there's benefits for being married or together. And there is not a second, yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labour. Yeah, you've got to work. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. You be content with what you have. And if you're asking for riches and you're asking for more money, what's the motive behind it? What do you want more money for? What are you going to do with it? Neither saith he, for whom do I labour and bereave my soul of good. This is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail. Two are better than one, yep, oftentimes, of course, because they have a good reward for their labour. They accomplish more. We're going out attracting day next Saturday. Hopefully we'll get a little team together, and it's much easier going in a team than doing it on alone. You encourage one another, you spur each other on. You can incentivize each other. It's just good to be out there. You can talk, you can walk together, having fellowship, you can talk about things, your struggles, good times, whatever it is. Rather than just going alone. It's difficult. Two are better than one because they have a good reward for their labour. For if they fall, we all fall at times, one will lift up his fellow. Turn to 1 Kings 1. We all fell at times, we all need help. It's lovely when somebody's there to help you. You know, you feel humbled by it when somebody's there. You know, I remember when I went through my operations and I had the team around me, I recover a lot quicker and a lot better. And they went out their way to help me, and I really appreciated that. And I remember hearing one lady in the hospital when she went back to her house. She's an old lady, she had no one to go back. It broke my heart. I couldn't believe it, that some people go through their lives and finish up in their elderly situation and they've got nobody, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. 1 Kings 1. Kings 1, is it 1 to 4? Now King David was old and stricken in years, and they covered him with cloths, but he gat no heat. Wherefore his servants said unto him, let there be sought for my lord the king a young virgin, and let her stand before the king. Let her cherish him, and let her lie in thy bosom, that my lord the king may get heat. So they sought for a fair damsel throughout all the coast of Israel, and found Abishag, a Shulamite, and brought her to the king. And the damsel was very fair, and cherished the king, and ministered to him that the king knew her, but the king knew her not, in the biblical sense, of course. We just watched that film, was it Unbroken, that true story that Christian mentioned. And that guy who became a Christian in the end, a Christian evangelist, amazing. What he went through, they were saying about the resilience of the human spirit, how they tried to break him, all the way through the prisoner, Japanese war camp, vile bloke. And they showed you the interview, or there's on YouTube the interview of the guy who actually did the punishment to this guy who became a Christian. Terrible it was. And they were 46 days, I think it was, stranded at sea in a dinghy, one of these army dinghies, just two of them. The men had died, and been a plane crash, and they were laying there, and the two guys were just laying there and trying to get heat, being there. It was perishing cold they were going through. You wouldn't believe what they went through, and they still come through it. 46 days, could you imagine that? At sea, with hardly any food or water. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. They were backing each other up to the hilt. They looked after each other. And even then, the Japanese, they split them up. Evil. Turn to Exodus 17. Listen, if you've got friends, you cherish them. Look after them. Exodus 17, 10 to 13. So Joshua did as Moses had said unto him, and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. It came to pass when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed, and when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. And Moses' hands were heavy. In times in your life where you're going to be so tired, you just can't go on by yourself. They took a stone and put it under him. They're looking after him. And he sat thereon, and Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands. They're looking after him now, holding up his hands, one on the right hand, the one on the right side, and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. They won the battle because his hands were lifted up, and they had one either side holding up his hands. They were looking after each other, one on one side, one on the other. Two are better than one, for if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him out. Sometimes people choose to be alone, and it causes them problems. Two are better than one. Two are better than one. Turn here. Acts 13. Have you got a friend? Or friends? And if you haven't, you need to ask yourself a question, why not? Is it me? Is it you? Why haven't you got friends? Some people go through all their life through pride and arrogance, and they think they're right all the time, and in the end they turn out to be bitter, old people who are not a friend in the world. It's so sad to see, but they just can't see the problems within themselves. Acts 13, verse 46. Then Paul and Barnabas. Paul and Barnabas. Acts 16, verse 19. And when the masters saw that the hope of their gains was gone, they caught Paul and Silas. Verse 25. And at midnight, Paul and Silas. You get the picture? Philippians 1:1. Paul and Timotheus. 1 Thessalonians 1, verse 1. Paul and Silvanus. He was always working together. There was always somebody with him. But when he had to have revelation from God, then God took him into Arabia, and was it Galatians 1 and 2? Arabia. That 2 years when he was with the Lord then. Yeah, okay, he's alone then with the Lord, but his ministry is oftentimes he was with folks. Mark 6, verse 7. And he called unto him the 12 and began to send them forth by 2 and 2. 2 and 2. And in regard to that word alone, you want to write down Psalm 102, verse 1 to 7. Psalm 102, verse 1 to 7. Matthew 14, verse 23. I don't know if I've duplicated any of these. John 16:32 and Romans 11, verse 1 to 3. And we'll finish off, let's just keep reading, verse 10. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? If one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and two shall fall is not quickly broken. You know, when you go out to safety as well, and safety in numbers, when you're on your own, sometimes when you're walking a path that is perhaps a little bit desolate, out of the way, and you're walking, whether it's under a subway or not, and there's two people coming towards you, you feel a little bit edgy. You feel like something went wrong now. Two of them, one of them. But when there's two of you, there's security. You can look after each other. 2 on 2, that's different than 2 on 1, isn't it? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. I love that, a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Threefold cord. Was it rope made out of three cords? They do, they make rope in Bewdley Museum. They show you how to do it, and they get these 3 cords and they wind them together. It's free of charge, very interesting to go and see, and see how they make it. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. And that middle cord, that's Jesus Christ in your relationship. Whether it's husband, wife, whether it's friendship, Jesus Christ is in the centre. He should always be in the centre of everything that you do. He should have a preeminent place in your life. You put the Lord first. Colossians 1:18. We're going to finish on this. 2 more verses. Colossians 1. Verse 18, and he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in all things, in everything you do, folks, whether you eat, whether it's doing up the house, whether it's walking and talking, whether it's working, whether it's sport, in all things, he might have the preeminence. He has first place. First place in your life. Relationships, he has first place. He comes before my wife, my friends, my family. He has first place. You compare that with 3 John 9. I wrote unto the church, but Diotrephes, who loveth to have the preeminence among them, receiveth us not. Diotrephes loved to have the preeminence. Jesus Christ should have the preeminence in our life. You compare those two verses. We said before when we did that sermon, didn't we? Are you a Diotrephes, 3 John 9, or are you a Demetrius, 3 John 12? Hath a good report of all men and of the truth itself. They say, don't they, birds of a feather flock together. I don't know what kind of character you are. Some of you do perhaps, but you pick and choose people perhaps of similar ilk at times. That's not always the best thing. Sometimes opposites attract, they say. And in relationships, it's just choosing the right people. A lot of kids go off the rails because they mix with the wrong crowd. And like you did at school, and like I did at school, you pick and choose your friends at school, and some of them were good and some of them were bad, and some of them lead you astray. And you've got to be careful who you mix with. And it's the same with Christian circles as well. With King James Bible believers, they've got to be right. Listen, some of the biggest nuts in the world are King James only Bible believers. Take my word for that. And you've got to be careful who you follow, who you get involved with. So we shall pick up from verse 13. Verse 13, Ecclesiastes 4, verse 13, next time. Amen. Okay, thank you.
My Jesus, I love thee. I know thou art mine. For thee, all the pleasures of sin I resign. My gracious Redeemer, my Savior art thou. If ever I love thee, my Jesus is now. I love Jesus.